All right, well, welcome again, everyone. My name is Greg Klein from Hayes Financial Group. Thanks for joining me today. You have my contact information on the slide. The topic for this presentation is retiree profiles and lifestyles in retirement. So it should really be some food for thought for us. It'll reveal some characteristics of these different profiles of lifestyles of current retirees. And then as we go through this and reveal some of this information of current retirees, with these profiles, you're likely going to put yourself in one of these groups. And at the end, then start to think about, if this is not where I want to be, if I'm not in one of the desirable groups of retirees, or I'm headed in that direction, what can we learn from this and take some action so that we find ourselves in a more suitable group where we are achieving that more satisfying retirement that we all desire. So like I mentioned, we're recording this, so submit questions via the chat. We'll have time for your questions. And at Hayes Financial Group, we're always available to you. You have our website on the slide, my direct email address, our LinkedIn page. I'm trying to stream this presentation live on LinkedIn too, so hopefully we'll do more of that in the future. If you go to our LinkedIn page, you'll see our upcoming webinars there as well. But you can scan that QR code, put time on our calendar, and we're happy to talk to you about this topic or any other retirement topic that you're interested in. So let's get started and look at our agenda for the next roughly 30 plus minutes. We will first set the stage. So we'll introduce the survey data that the presentation material is based on and what key factors played a role in the satisfaction of these current retirees. Then we're going to highlight some findings from each of these retiree profile groups. And from that, we're going to pull some lessons learned and see what the takeaways are, see what we can do to better improve our situation. And we'll give you a chance to ask questions, remind you how you can get in touch with us for any further conversation or follow-up. So pretty straightforward, and we'll get after it. The findings that we're going to discuss in the base material for this presentation, they come from a survey that was done by the Employee Benefit Research Institute, or they go by the acronym EBRI. And so they did this survey of 2,000 households. They're retired households, which means at least one or all of the people in the household are retired. And they did this thinking about baby boomers. There's 70 million baby boomers that are making their way to and through retirement. And so this survey was done by the Research Institute to get a better idea of what constitutes a satisfactory lifestyle for these current retirees in retirement. And you'll see ages there, retirees, pretty broad age range, beginning of retirement to, let's say, mid-retirement. These are not the most affluent households. They are individuals or households that have under $1 million in financial assets. So it's not including those super affluent households. But the results or the respondents of the survey, they're roughly evenly split between household income, where we'll say the high range is 80,000 and above, middle is like 40 to 80,000, and then low would be under 40,000. So those are their incomes. And then we'll see from the income and the results of the survey, where the Research Institute placed these individuals into these different profile groups. So they glean from the results and divide the respondents into these distinct groups or profiles. So we want to know from this information, what it takes to achieve that satisfactory retirement lifestyle. And I always remind people that we are unique individuals with different interests. And this is pre-retirement, post-retirement. So we have unique lifestyles, income levels. And so then it shouldn't be a shock that there's not a ton of uniformity in the paths that people take in retirement. We're very unique individuals. Pre-retirement, got different interests, different income levels. So post-retirement, we continue to be very unique. But with that said, the data show that there are some key factors contributing to a more satisfactory retirement lifestyle, which is what we want to go through with you today. these principal factors, there are many, but we're going to just focus on a few and see how we can distinguish with these factors between these different groups and their levels of satisfaction. So we have assets and income, how much they're bringing in terms of income in retirement, their debt, home ownership, that kind of ties into debt as well. Do they pay off their mortgage or not? Are they a renter? Do they have high levels of debt? And then that health status, how do they rate their health situation? So these are the main factors that distinguish the different profile groups. And so now let's see how these factors are reflected in the different profile groups. And so we'll start with our average retiree group. And the results are the Research Institute called this the average group, but that's because this was the largest portion, or I should say the middle group. So there's a couple of groups that you could say are better off, more satisfied, a couple groups less satisfied. This is the biggest group. So more than a fifth, about 28%, they lumped into this average group. But don't think that this is like an average number. So this group is called the average group because they're middle of the road. That doesn't mean that these numbers were like a total of all the survey responses and then averaged up to see what average income was or what average debt was. This is just that middle of the road group. And you'll see that they don't have massive financial assets. So most less than $100,000 in financial assets. And as well, they have retirement income under $100,000. Social Security does play a major role. You'll see that for a lot of our groups, and we'll talk about the role of Social Security. And then you can see on here, roughly where most of them are falling, between that $2,000 and $3,000 a month in terms of income. They're likely to be married. So when we're looking at Social Security, then likely to have a couple of Social Security checks coming in for this average group. They do have some credit card debt or auto debt, so it's not as if they're totally debt-free, like so many of us in America. Even in retirement, they have some debt where they're paying off their car or carry a credit card balance. So they're not all totally debt-free, but they are pretty satisfied, this average retiree group. And I think it helps us as human beings. We always like to compare ourselves to the average. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. We want to know how we're doing compared to the rest. Are we above average, below? So this helps. This average group kind of sets the baseline. If you are an individual that has a solid workplace retirement account balance in your 401k, 403b, if you are debt-free or plan to be debt-free by retirement, you probably still stress quite a bit about your retirement. Not being perfectly on track, but as we see here, you're probably better than this middle of the road or average group. But in the end, they are still pretty satisfied with their situation in retirement. You see, they give their satisfaction 7.8 out of 10. So it's not as if they're totally dissatisfied. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't beat yourself up too much. You might be better off than you even realize. And we can see that by looking at this baseline average group. So then we get a little bit better. We move into comfortable retirees. Again, about a fifth of the respondents, like 22%, they lumped into the comfortable group. And we start to see some differences now. Comfortable retirees reported levels of income similar to the average group. So, under $100,000 in terms of income, but with financial assets, they have greater financial assets from like 100 to 320,000. Again, most are married. So if we're looking at Social Security, then, we're talking about a couple Social Security checks coming in. You see that half spend under $3,000 a month in retirement. So that gives you an idea of comfortable. Now the differences start to creep in here. You see that comfortable, they have easily manageable levels of debt, a lot, or I should say, half are mortgage free. Some do still have a mortgage, but, the credit card debt, auto loan debt is manageable. So debt is not as much of a concern when we're talking about a comfortable retirement versus our average group. The comfortable group also reported a wide variety of income sources. So that's where you're thinking about Social Security, your 401k, 403b, something else like an IRA or an individual retirement account. You may have a defined benefit pension type of plan, like a stock ownership plan, different sources of income. We'll see as we go through the material that a lot of these retirees do, like the more comfortable or the more satisfied that they are with retirement, the more likely they are to have that defined benefit pension type of plan. But keep in mind, these are older individuals, so already in retirement, where they probably didn't have a 401k or 403b. So, the defined benefit pension plan is more likely their type of retirement income. But the comfortable group, all in all, very satisfied, more than the average group, but less than the next group that we're going to take a look at, which is the affluent group, or the best off, we can say financially. About a fifth of the respondents, so like 19%, fall into the affluent group. Affluent retirees, as the name suggests, are likely to have higher levels of financial assets and income, likely to have assets of $320,000 or more. Remember, respondents in the survey are less than $1 million. So this would be, above 320,000, to $1 million would kind of fall into that affluent group. Many are spending between $2,000 and $4,000 a month. Highest likelihood of being married. So, I'm not pushing marriage in the least, but, you see when people are working together as a team, maybe not just for financial reasons, maybe for emotional, psychological reasons as well, but you see that they tend to score higher in terms of satisfaction and are likely to be married. Then we see that the affluent retirees have no debt or easily managed debt. So that's a key thing. The majority are mortgage and debt free, which makes a huge difference. If they have more financial assets, but are also debt free, obviously they're going to be in a much better situation. They do have those diverse sources of retirement income. I mentioned the pension, or that defined benefit pension plan. That was most commonly cited with this group. So that's, again, something that we're going to address in the lessons learned and what we can do for ourselves. So not surprisingly, this affluent group is the most satisfied with retirement. But, we started with average, then we worked into like above average. So we talked about comfortable, affluent. You've probably picked up on some contributing factors that increase to the higher satisfaction with the comfortable and affluent group. And so now we'll look at the last two profiles that are below average or not as satisfied, and see what their situation is. We'll start with the ones that are the worst off, what they labeled struggling retirees. So again, about a fifth of the respondents, or 18%, fell into the struggling group. So struggling, we're looking at low levels of income, less than $40,000 a year. Obviously, almost all of them had less than $100,000 of financial assets. Many living on less than $2,000 a month, where you see that you can assume they have Social Security and nothing else. Women, on average, tend to live longer than men. So what we find is in the struggling group, a lot of times it ends up being a single female or a single individual. And so then maybe it was a situation where the planning wasn't appropriate. They didn't plan to outlive their spouse. Now they're living on one Social Security check. Maybe the savings have run out. So we find in the struggling group. And then also it might be like spiritual, emotional issues as well. But, when you're working as a team and have a couple of Social Security checks and a couple 401ks, it makes it a little bit easier. The struggling group tends to be single individuals. And then they're most likely to be renters or have that unmanageable levels of debt. They rely, many of them, solely on Social Security, or at least the bulk of their retirement income from Social Security alone. And then whether this is correlation or causation, we also see that this group rates their health status the worst. So whether it was health that led to their financial struggles and a less satisfying retirement, or the reverse, because of their financial struggles, it's impacted their health, whatever, this group gave the lowest responses in terms of their health status. And then they believe their standard of living in many cases has gone down in retirement. And that's not the situation where you want to find yourself. That's what we're trying to prevent with information like this, making sure we're accessible as the advisor in your workplace retirement plan, because it's not an enviable place to be in that struggling group. You see that their satisfaction score is way lower. That's not the retirement that any of us dream for ourselves. So we got to take steps not to find ourselves in that group. And then the last group, which is the smallest group, they lumped about 12% of respondents into this just getting by. But it still an important group to look at, because similar to the strugglers, those just getting by had low levels of financial assets and income. Many of them single or female. Again, maybe the female that outlived their spouse. Social Security as a major source of income for these individuals. But what we see in the difference between a struggler and one just getting by is that the lack of debt with those just getting by. The strugglers have more of those unmanageable levels of debt. And just getting by, you have more homeowners, fewer renters. So just over half owning their homes free and clear. And if they have any debt, that level was manageable. So that makes a huge difference between struggling and then just getting by. The result then is fewer in this group of just getting by believing that their standard of living in retirement decreased. So they have higher satisfaction. You see what strugglers were 5.8 compared to just getting by at 7.2. The average group was 7.8. So just getting by, not too far behind in terms of their satisfaction, even though their financial situation might not be as good. That debt is a big one. If they don't have that debt hanging over their heads, they seem to be much more satisfied with their retirement. So we've seen these profile groups, these 5 broad groups of retirees. You might have placed yourself already in one of these camps. You might be thinking, I think I'm more average. I'm a bit of a struggler. I don't have anything saved. I'm pretty good. I have a big retirement balance. I'm probably more comfortable or affluent. But you ask yourself, do you have too much debt? Are you not saving enough? Do you have limited sources of income in retirement that you're setting up for yourself? And so if you're facing more of a harsh reality, so if you find yourself having more in common with the segment of strugglers because you intend to have debt still in retirement, don't have a lot of financial assets, and you compare yourself or see more yourself in line with that group than the comfortable or affluent group, well, this is the time to take that realization. I'm glad that you're joining us and listening to this presentation to see how we can turn this into a positive and take some steps to put yourself more in a position where you'll be in that satisfied cohort of retirees. That's where we want you to be. So we can learn some lessons from this information. I'll go through 3 different lessons that I already hinted at a little bit as we went through the different profile groups. But we have 3. Number 1, I think, is that intersection of health and wealth. So what we call in today's lexicon wellness. So this is that holistic view of your physical and financial well-being. And this can and really should be extremely high on your priority list for you and your loved ones. Because after all, if you don't have your health, nothing else matters. Whether you're affluent or struggling, you need to take care of yourself emotionally and physically so that you can reap the rewards of these smart financial decisions that you make, like saving in your 401k, 403b, waiting to get a maximum Social Security check. But of course, priorities change throughout our stages in life, pre-retirement, during retirement. But maintaining health and wellness in retirement by far was the most important goal that at the time the people retired of the respondents, 81% said that it was very or extremely important, their health. And then this actually became more important the more they progressed into their retirement. You contrast that with something like traveling. When we think of retirement, we always think of ticking off everything on our bucket list, visiting all these different places around the globe, and everybody wants to travel. But with these respondents, traveling became less important as they aged. So health and wellness becomes increasingly important, and you worry less about those things like your bucket list and traveling. And so as we saw with our retiree profiles, that connection between health and wealth, or what we call wellness, it's a bit of a virtuous or a vicious circle. I mean, good health can make you more satisfied in retirement. Poor health can do the opposite, or vice versa. If your financial situation is not in good order, that can lead to less than an ideal health situation. You can't ignore one for the other. So that's lesson number one, is health. Make your emotional, your physical health a priority, so that again, you can reap the rewards of these smart decisions that you're making with your finances. So lesson number two, that is with the debt. I mean, we saw that a lot. Up there with the importance of taking care of your emotional and physical health is that idea of eliminating debt. Those that are least satisfied with retirement were those with unmanageable or crushing levels of debt. Like 4 in 10 of those that had unmanageable debt registered below average satisfaction in retirement. So high correlation with having debt and being less satisfied in retirement. And in fact, those with the unmanageable debt, they scored poorly on almost every measure. So lower life expectancy, less ability to spend within their means, retirement being costlier than they had expected, finding themselves forced to dip into savings when they don't want to, like if the market's down, being forced to sell some investments low just to get by. And then they also had a lack of alignment between what their retirement expectations were and then what the retirement reality is. So even low levels of income may not prevent that satisfying or happy retirement, provided that retirees eliminate debt, have that security of home ownership. So lower levels of debt is a key lesson. But once again, not everything is so black and white. It's more of gray. I think of these different factors that we're talking about with these lessons as like that Venn diagram. So these are not discrete or mutually exclusive issues. We need to mind our health and wellness. We need to know that debt deteriorates our wellness. If our wellness is low, it could lead to poor health. That can increase the debt with medical costs and decrease our satisfaction. So it's all intertwined. And so you can take some of these steps to increase your satisfaction, take care of yourself physically, emotionally, eliminate debt. That's got to be a priority as well. And our third lesson has to do with guaranteed retirement income. Oh, and I threw this slide in at the last minute because if you've been watching the NBA playoffs, you've probably seen this commercial. I thought it was kind of timely that I was working on this presentation material. But the Army, this is an Army commercial, and they've obviously picked up on this, the fact that they offer pensions as being a very attractive marketing for their recruits. So like I said, I've been seeing this in the breaks in the NBA playoffs. If you haven't seen it, you can kind of tell by the pictures, 2 guys fishing. One's on his phone, sending emails, and seems kind of stressed out. The other one's pretty chill. The one that's on the phone that's stressed out, the other guy asks him, he's like, well, it must be intense, whatever you're working on. And the guy that is stressed out, he asks the other guy, he's like, are you retired? And he says, yeah. And he assumes that he's in the tech industry, because how could he be retired and be so laid back and, relatively young? And the guy says, no, Army, he's in the Army. And then they flash up this pension plans. So I, of course, got to give my hats off, or take my hat off to all our service members. They deserve every penny of their nice benefits and their pension plans. But you see that the Army, they know and they want to communicate that this pension plan is a nice benefit. It provides peace of mind. We see that it equates to a more satisfied, or a higher level of satisfaction in retirement. And we saw that with the survey, with the different sources of income that retirees had. I understand, like I said, that Today's world doesn't have pension plans so much. You can see that by this bar chart on this slide. So this is percentage of households with that pension or that guaranteed income. And you can see for younger generations, it's very, very low. For a lot of these individuals that responded to this survey, that were baby boomers or part of that silent generation, they are more likely to have that guaranteed retirement income with a pension. But we saw the correlation between those that were comfortable or affluent. They're more likely to have that guaranteed source of income than those that are in the struggling or just getting by group. Because what happens is with that guaranteed monthly check, it provides peace of mind, allows one to spend their other savings more freely because they're not worried about running out of money. Like I said, most of us don't have a pension anymore. So for most of us, the source of guaranteed income, if we're just working with like a 401k, 403b, Social Security is going to be our primary source of guaranteed income. So what we can learn from this is that maximizing that benefit, maximizing that guaranteed monthly check for the rest of your life is key. It can provide you more satisfaction in retirement. Now, a whole nother presentation is talking about the situation with Social Security, so we won't get into that. I will plug another presentation recording that I have that's available on our website about building a Social Security bridge. So the idea of using your savings to bridge to delay Social Security and get a higher Social Security check. That, of course, is someone that's looking at least average life expectancy, that has their health. If you are broke, you don't have your health, you don't expect to live very long, then it's probably not beneficial for you to delay Social Security. But it's something to consider. Our retirement plan industry is working to make this easier, more transparent, cheaper, so that you can turn this nest egg that you're building with your 401k, 403b into some income if that's what you so desire. So far fewer of us are likely to have that pension. Our guaranteed source of income is probably Social Security, and that'll make Social Security that only form of guaranteed income. So the lesson is just, if you can, to maximize that, because that provides you that peace of mind, or understand, if that's the type of individual that you are, you work better knowing that you have that monthly check coming in, that, maybe looking at giving yourself some guaranteed income. There are options out there that can provide you that sort of income so that, you can be more relaxed and spend your money a little bit freer in retirement and not stress out so much, because we see a lot of retirees stressing and then not wanting to spend on their assets and maybe not enjoying themselves as much as they really could. And you don't want to end up in that situation either. So finally, we'll wrap up our discussion. We'll take a look at this knowledge that we've gained from these retiree profiles and lifestyles, some lessons that we've learned from them, and see what it is that we can do now with our retirement accounts to put us in a better situation. And so these are the key takeaways. Number one is understand that retirement, like we mentioned, like every other phase in life, it's not a one size fit all situation. It's impossible to really predict accurately. The reality of retirement often differs from what our expectations are. And we saw this with these current retirees. It was less than a quarter, fewer than 1 in 4 scored their current retirement as highly aligned with what they had expected before they retired, or what they planned their retirement to be. So just like every phase in life, who knows? So be flexible, be prepared, but be flexible. If you don't know what you want to do this weekend or what you want for dinner tonight, you're not going to be able to know exactly what you want to do 10, 15, 20, 30 years in the future. So it's certainly not a one size fit all. And I also say that because, we're in the business of providing education on investments in retirement, but a lot of it's generalized information. Every individual is very unique. So again, don't stress out at night just because you're not keeping up with the Joneses. We saw in those retirees that were just getting by, they weren't doing as well as some of the other groups, but weren't much less satisfied, because of certain situations in their life. So that's one thing. One size does not fit all. take advantage of your options. I mean, people just in general that I speak to always wish they had been saving more. We saw that with the respondents in this survey. Only 18% reported that they'd saved more than what they had needed for retirement. And nearly half reported having saved less than what they really needed for retirement. So very few people get to retirement and think, oh man, I just saved too much money. I wish I had saved less. That doesn't really happen. So it also provides satisfaction and happiness. The having that retirement nest egg makes people happy. 64% of the respondents agreed that saving as much as they could, that makes them happy and fulfilled. So saving is a good thing. If you have options through your workplace retirement plan, or better yet, if you have a workplace retirement plan that offers a matching contribution, you need to be taking advantage of that. We talked about how generations today likely don't have that guaranteed income or that pension in the future. So you have to be taking advantage of the options that are available to you in your 401k, 403b. Your future self will thank you for doing it, believe me. And then third up is balance that desire for security, the security that you won't run out of money with the flexibility to spend and enjoy yourself. This is, where we see that guaranteed income come into play, because it can give you more peace of mind to spend a little bit freer. If Social Security is that only form of guaranteed income, you might want to think about trying to maximize that. So not taking Social Security early, which you can take Social Security as early as 62, but you get a lesser check for the rest of your life. And we see that people have higher guaranteed income every month tend to be more satisfied. So I know as much as it hurts, and you probably don't want to think about delaying Social Security or delaying retirement, it might give you a more satisfying retirement because you've got that safety net of that higher Social Security check coming in for the rest of your life and or your spouse's life. We saw some of those that were struggling the most were single individuals. So if you're planning together, that's a decision that you want to make with your spouse, because what you do with your Social Security will affect your spouse in most cases. So balance security and flexibility. There are definitely trade-offs there. With your nest egg, you can search out some security. There are options in addition to Social Security, and then seek advice. That's what we're here for. Though it was not asked specifically in the survey, you can assume that the comfortable or more affluent, we're likely to have someone helping them out, someone guiding them. And having Hayes Financial Group as your advisor on your workplace retirement plan, you can reach out to us at no extra cost. Take advantage. If you want to discuss your workplace retirement plan or something else, that's what we're here for. So I think seeking advice is key. We're not all experts in every aspect of our lives. So, get some help. Bounce an idea off of us before you make a big change with your retirement savings. But we're here for you, whether you find yourself more in that comfortable group, or if you're a struggler, no question is too small. No situation is one where you shouldn't reach out to us for help. Reach out. That's our contact information there on the last slide. You got our LinkedIn page, our text. You can text us at our text number. You can call. You can scan that QR code to get into our scheduling page. You can visit our website. Like I mentioned, I'll put this recording on our website. I'll send you a recording link, but that's always posted on our website. But I appreciate you sticking with me. Congratulate you. I'll throw you some confetti for making it through the presentation. Thanks a lot. Taking time out of your busy day. And if you give me just a moment, then what I'll do is I'll stop the recording, and then we can see if there are any questions that you want to ask.